think if you look at the post-World War II period, now there was a lot wrong with it, so I'm not looking back with nostalgia or thinking that this was, a wonderful time. I mean, for women, it was a pretty bad time. But leaving that aside, there were ways in which that period we were doing a lot better. So there was a lot of social capital built during that time. Working hours weren't nearly as long, so people had time to socialize. We did begin at that point really undermining the natural world, so it wasn't so good on that front. But it was also a time in which wealth inequality was declining. This country was building a middle class, so the inequality was reduced. I mean, the post-World War II era was the period in which Americans were keeping up with the Joneses. Those were the people in their neighborhoods, in those suburban developments that were being built, and people were acquiring household appliances and cars, and they were watching what their neighbor was getting and, wanting it for themselves. So the process of sort of what I've called competitive consumption or conspicuous consumption, Veblen's term, the process of a sort of social comparison in our consumer habits is very long-standing. I mean, it just takes different forms at different times. I would say that in the post-World War II era, when we were keeping up with the Joneses rather than the Gateses or the Kardashians, that's from the 80s on, that was a more sustainable kind of competition because people were not aspiring for lifestyles that were so far above their means. They were aspiring to do a little bit better, and that sort of idea of the American dream means a little bit better. It doesn't mean becoming a millionaire or a billionaire. That sort of, really intense wealth aspiration in which people come to think that the most important thing is to be filthy rich, that becomes a really toxic kind of culture.